Hey, might help if I unmute the mic there. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back into Dog Talk. Glad to have you guys here as we are getting ready to recap the Tennessee game from this past weekend. What a game it was! If you can see, if you're watching on, I guess it's YouTube, the only place that you can watch right now. You see quite a game. And I just decided, hey, we're going to title this thing a little bit fun tonight, and it's a gunner stunner in Knoxville. What a game it was that we're going to be recapping tonight. We've got a lot to kind of get to. Obviously, this is the live call-in show. Call in at any point in time that you guys want to. 844-657-DAWG. That's 844-65-7 over TCU 3294. Any point in time you guys want to call. Later on in the show, we are going to get to some voicemails from the game this past week. So make sure you guys stick around for that, especially if you called and got in on that side of things and left a voicemail. Again, we've got some news and notes to get to. Obviously, we've got a huge football game to get to and kind of run through stats and all this, that, and the other. Some of kind of the what do I want to look at? We did some picks this week. You know, I talked about this last week. I didn't really. I've gotten to where I really don't do them a lot on here. I may talk about some of the games that are going on around the country. But I've been doing the picks this year, and I gotta say, it was a pretty good week. It was a pretty good week of picks this week. 6-1, I think, is what we finished. I'll see if I can find that and get it up for us just to kind of talk about, because we're still going to do picks this coming week. Obviously, we aren't playing a game this weekend, so we have the bye week. One thing to kind of talk about there, which, again, all this stuff we're getting to, just kind of lining up some stuff that we're going to talk about because we don't have a game this week. Obviously, if you're watching this and you're thinking, okay, if you've listened to us long enough or watched, whatever happened to the Sunday recap show? I decided this week, and I probably should have tweeted about this, but I just decided not to. Wasn't terribly worried about doing a recap on Sunday, mainly because I knew this Thursday, having a live call-in show and being able to kind of recap that, I thought that would be a lot more fun. This coming Sunday, there won't be an episode, obviously, because there's nothing to recap. But next Thursday is going to be a big one. Obviously, having Alabama coming to the house, we're going to be talking all about that once the time comes. Make sure you guys are sticking around and looking forward to that, because I know I am. And I know most of you guys probably are too, because, again, that's a big football game. It's a big game that's coming up. I'm excited about it. I know you guys are too. We're not going to preview too much of it coming up just yet. We're going to kind of wait. We're going to kind of stick around. We're going to wait and really dive into previewing that next week. We might talk about it slightly here at the end of the show, but for now, we're going to stick with this Tennessee game again, because it was huge. We got a lot to talk about to get to it. Let's start right here, though. News and notes off the top. SEC did announce they are about to give away. I say give away. They're about to tell us what those three, I called it concrete games, are in the SEC for everybody's SEC schedule. We're supposed to be getting that next Tuesday. So what is today? Today's the 18th on this Thursday. So next Tuesday, just a couple of weeks away, or a couple of weeks, just a few days away, obviously, before we get to that. So we're going to know. We've talked about this a little bit here over the last couple of weeks, who we think it's going to be. I think most everybody's in agreement. Florida, Auburn, both of those teams, they got to stay there, the South oldest rivalry. And then obviously the greatest outdoor cocktail party. Those games have to stick around. Who's that third team going to be? Been a lot of debate of it. I'm still in agreement that it's Tennessee. And this game right here was a great example of the potential of what that rivalry could be brought back to. Because, again, I talked about this last week or maybe the week before. A rivalry has to be a game that you're actually competitive in, that you actually win every so often. And Tennessee hasn't done that in 9 years. We're going to talk about that here in just a minute. Tennessee hadn't done that in 9 years. So is it a rivalry? I guess not necessarily if you're not winning it. But at the same time, that game always matters. It matters a lot to both teams. This year in particular was one of the best games I've ever seen us play in this. And I say that coming off of a couple of years where we've been losing starting that football game before we really dove in and started actually getting deeper into the game, winning it, coming back, kind of putting that death nail in it, which happened in this football game, which was awesome to see because that crowd was happening. We talked about this a little bit last week. Hey, that crowd doesn't really matter because Georgia's came there the past however many years and the crowd hasn't been a factor. The crowd was a factor in this game, not in a sense of, hey, we're going to have a bunch of false starts, but they were effective as far as just being loud overall and in general. So there is that. I still think, though, I would like Tennessee to be that team that we have to play every year. Again, it kind of goes to a lot of these teams, you know. Kentucky is one, we've had their number. Auburn is one, we've had their number. Since, 2017? We're going on 8-9 years of that. Come next year, I guess is 9. So this year, 8 years. That could change later in the season, according to some people. I don't know. But again, some of these other teams that we've played, it's not really, you got to win it every so often. And I kind of started doing this today. I started thinking about this, this game that we got coming up next week against Alabama. Everybody says getting over the hump. Getting over the hump of the team that you're playing and you just can't beat. And I don't know if I would consider that like in this Georgia-Tennessee situation. I think you start with maybe a hump, okay? And then we progress to, I don't know, a hill. And then it's a mountain, okay? And then it's just this thing that you just cannot overcome, and I don't know what you would consider a planet, maybe. Anyway, Tennessee right now, it's not a hump and it's not a hill. It's a mountain that they have to get over to beat Georgia. And here's the deal. When you start to get over that, it's not like a hurdle. A hurdle is just that game in general. A hurdle, getting over the hurdle is just whoop up something real quick and in a hurry. That yes, you can get over in this game, but you still got a mountain that you're climbing, trying to actually get over. Because when you win one, just the way Georgia did a couple of years ago in the national championship against an Alabama team who they have not beat outside of that national championship game in a long time, and even considering forward now, still have not. That was a hurdle we jumped that day, because since then we still have not climbed that mountain any further as far as getting over that. So just a random tidbit, kind of off the wall deal there. Don't know who that third team's going to be. Again, I'm still all in favor, especially after this year's game, of that being a Tennessee team. I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't know if that's something that they want to see happen. Again, I think it would be a lot of fun to be able to see that happen just because of how good that game actually was. And I'm going to be honest with you. We'll see. Because again, maybe it's just because we haven't played Kentucky this season. Did we play Kentucky? Oh, we do play Kentucky. I'm wrong about that. I apologize. Missouri was the team I was thinking. Didn't end up pulling them last year after the good couple of games we've had over the last couple of years. Vanderbilt, a couple of teams there that we have not played that naturally we would play just because they're that SEC opponent in the East from back when the divisions were there, something that we would normally be used to playing. Those aren't teams that I necessarily see being that. I could see they're potentially going to push for maybe that Kentucky, even a South Carolina team who over the last couple of years has been a good football team. And things look a little bit different this year. I still think they're a good football team. I think Vanderbilt's actually a really good football team, hence the reason they beat them. But we're going to get to some of those other games that happened last week later on into the episode. But nonetheless, I don't know. I really don't know who it is they're going to pick. To me, give me a Tennessee. But that's going to come out on Tuesday. We're going to know those SEC ops once that time comes. And I look forward to that. Excited to see that. That's another thing we can kind of get off of our back as far as talking about there as well. So let's kind of get into some other things, because injury updates, we talked about this coming into this game, and kind of a funny tidbit here. Ernest Green, we saw him come into the game. We saw him. He still looks very limited with the back issues that he's had. He did come in the game here and there. Juwan Gaston, this was the funny one to me, that Andrew Smart, tweets, X's, whatever. It's still a tweet. And he's like, he gonna play. And I was like, there's your back. There's your inside scoop right there coming on Twitter. And sure enough, the guy plays, which I was like, this is crazy. And I'm pretty sure he got grounded after that. But anyways, that was cool to see. He doesn't last the entire game, goes back down with some more ankle issues. And then we get, Bo Hughley comes in, does a great job there. You're working guys in and out right now. Here's another thing. And somebody correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't know. I know a lot of us have called, is it Michael Unai? I know I was listening to Kirk Herbstreit keep saying Owini, and I was like, I don't like that. I don't like how he's pronouncing that. I don't know if he's right or wrong. Normally I can go to like Georgia's website and I look and I see that, you can click the name like next to the name and it'll say it out for you, because of us that can't quite understand everybody's name. But I saw that and I was like, I don't know exactly how to say his name. So you guys, please correct me if I'm wrong in that. I'm just going to call him, maybe we just call him MU. I don't know. But anyways, that sounds kind of stupid too. But we saw a couple of guys come in that were injured and also go back out that still had some of those same injuries. Another one was Dwight Phillips. He went down later, I think in like the third quarter. He was, I can't remember exactly what it was that he was battling something with his foot there. I think it was more precaution not to necessarily get him in. Kirby did say, I think on Monday or Tuesday, that he did actually rep a little bit more than he had earlier in the week. So maybe that's a promising thing. Hope to see him out there. Obviously, he's one of those guys that really gives us a lot of flash, and is a very quick runner too. So that's kind of what I have on injury updates. Obviously, this is something that we will continue to monitor. And when we get to the Thursday episode next week on the call-in show, that's something else that we will also be kind of paying attention to, because injuries are going to matter a lot next week. We talked a little bit about the injuries that Tennessee had coming in with their cornerbacks being out. And did that matter in this game? We'll talk about it here in just a minute as we get into the preview. But that's kind of where we landed on that. We've got some more that we're going to have to deal with, obviously, coming up next week. And there's a long time between now and next Saturday. So next week on Thursday's live call-in show, we'll be sure to update any injury updates that we know of at that point in time, as well as begin to look at some of those that Alabama's facing, because they're obviously facing some, and they've been facing some coming into this bye week as well. That's one good thing for both teams. Both of us have a bye week, so there can be no excuses once we get to it. Obviously, some teams are still going to be missing some guys once that time comes, but there can't be that excuse of, oh man, we were just wore out. We both got the bye after tough football games. They played a Wisconsin team at home. We went on the road and played a much tougher Tennessee team. And I'm going to be honest with you as we dive into the preview here. Tennessee is a lot better football team than I thought they might be. And I say this from a front of, when you, over the last number of years, have consistently either drummed a team or defensively you have given up very few points while offensively scoring, obviously, more than them to win the game. I.e., the example of we beat them, 38-17. The most they've scored is 17. Really under that, especially Josh Heupel era, it's been a long time since they've scored much more than that. And I told you guys kind of coming into this when we did the score prediction, at least lower down in this section that we go through here, is Tennessee's going to do something that they have not done against Georgia in, I don't know how long, 8 years, 9 years, 8 years, I think. And it wasn't that they were going to beat us. It was that they're going to score more than that 17. Now, I put it more around like that, I don't know, 20, 21 point. Like I thought they'd score a little bit more. I didn't expect them to put up as much as they did. Their offense is very, very good. I have to give them that credit here. And I want to give them the credit at the start of this, so that way then I can dive deep and give Georgia all the credit in the world for everything else that happened in this football game. Because there was a point in time coming into this football game, this team was hype. Obviously, both sides of the ball to me, Georgia's offense and obviously their defense. And the same for Tennessee and all of their fans as well. This was a game that when we got started, man, you could not ask for a better atmosphere. But just like the last time we went to Neyland and we played, the first drive that they had, first play of the game that they had the ball, boom, 75-yard touchdown run. They're electric. And from that point on, we just kind of death marched offensively throughout the game, and defensively strangled them from that point on. And when you get in a game like this, where all of a sudden you go from a team who's going to put a strangle on you defensively where you can do nothing, and offensively we're going to do what we want to do to you at will, into a game that we played this past Saturday, it's a little bit of a culture shock for you when you're not used to giving up as many points as we did. Again, I expected us to give up more points this season than we had in times past. Mainly, here's why. Josh Heupel does run a very interesting offense. He runs a very widespread offense that not many teams are running. He's very fast-paced with things. We're going to talk about time of possession, because this is one of those games that it's a stat I think kind of gets overlooked. And just how much longer Georgia had the football than Tennessee. Just how much longer some of the drives that Georgia pulled out in this game, how long they were in comparison to how short and how fast and explosive a lot of Tennessee's were. A lot of this is also, again, I'm going to give them the credit here. Offensively, they schemed up a game very good to drive down the field. And this is where Tennessee hits much better, I'm not going to say all the time, than Georgia did in this game, was the explosive downfield. Georgia had some. I'm not saying that we didn't. But explosivity downfield is what Tennessee kind of leans on. That's their game, is if we can hit you deep and beat you deep, we're going to do that. And they did that. They did that very effectively. One on a freshman who's got some things he's got to learn, obviously. And then we had a couple of other really good coverages, with exception to one bust where the guy's wide open and goes in and scores. Defensively, overall, I wasn't necessarily displeased with this game. Again, it's kind of one of those you look and you go, man, that's close. And a lot of that is probably me saying that because, hey, we won the game at the end of the day. And if you're winning the game at the end of the day, I'm not necessarily going to be mad at you for the fact that you won. Okay. If this is a game we lose 41-38, something like that, then it might be a little bit more of a conversation of, hey, we got to figure things out defensively. Now, we still have to do that. We still obviously have to figure out things on defense because you can't just play a game like that every single week and expect your offense to constantly bail out a defense who normally that's not something that has to happen. This is something kind of coming into this game that I was thinking, all right, offensively, we've got some things we got to figure out. I don't know if we're going to figure them out in this game, which we did. Nice to see. But defensively, it's like, all right, this might be the group that has to kind of bail us out of a few situations. Because if offensively we're trying to figure things out and we're not, well, defense, you've got to stop somebody to give us those opportunities to be able to do that. So that's just a couple of things that I did note kind of coming into this game. And I was like, all right, let's see what happens. But overall, I wasn't necessarily mad with the way that things went defensively. Again, you got a freshman who's learning. He's doing everything he can. One tough play on him. You got another guy who was in prime position to make a play on the ball, just didn't necessarily make the right jump. Also looked like a push off, but I will not use that as an excuse for any part of this game. And then again, the busted coverage. Those were the three biggest explosive plays that they had in the game. That's 21 points right there off of that. One of the other things that I'm going to talk about as we kind of dive deeper into this game is when you get turnovers, what do you do with them? This is both on their part as well as on our part. But when you get a turnover, that is when you have to kick a team in the teeth as hard as you possibly can. Because if you get in a game and you get these turnovers, especially a high-powered game that this one was, and you don't turn it into more than just a touchdown, it can come back to bite you. And it almost did that to Georgia this week. Georgia had multiple opportunities to be able to really step on the throat of Tennessee, especially in that third quarter that we're going to talk about here in just a minute. Especially in that third quarter, to get a turnover and to be able to put your foot on their throat and really just stomp them out, take the crowd completely out of it that was out of it, and that didn't happen. We'll kind of dive into it as things go. Georgia wins this one 44-41. Obviously, a really great football game. I was excited for this one coming into it. Wasn't 100% sure what was going to happen in it, but nonetheless, it did. And we've got a lot to kind of talk about. Again, call in anytime you guys want. And we'll do that. Here's we go, because I can't talk right now. I want to talk about just stats. We're going to run through stats. You can read them yourself. It's pretty simple, but it's nice sometimes when somebody else reads them out to you, right? Net yards rushing. Pretty even on this. A little bit better than they were. 28 first downs to Tennessee's 23. We rushed the ball 198 yards to 125. Here's the biggest difference in it. Georgia ran the ball 55 times compared to their 34. Georgia ran the ball. We're going to get to those keys to the game here in just a minute. This is something if you watched or listened long enough, you know that I enjoy doing this. If I told you guys coming into this football game, okay, pre-game, we talked about it, what it was going to take to win this game. If I tell you guys, all right, Tennessee is going to score 41 points in this game, just blindly, Tennessee's going to score 41, and they're going to have almost 500 yards of offense in this game. If I tell you that off the rip, and by the way, then I'll turn around and tell you, hey, Georgia also turned the ball over. I think only one time. I think it was just the one fumble. It'd be nice if I could see it on my paper here, but I don't. I think it was just really the one fumble. We had the one interception, but it doesn't really count because it's at the half, and they ran it for a few yards, get tackled, we're over with the half. Kind of a toss-up play anyway, so I'm not really going to count that one. But if I tell you in this, well, I'll just add it to it. Why not? An interception and a fumble in this game. They put up almost 500 yards offensively and score 41 points. If you told me that blindly pregame, I'm going to tell you, okay, Georgia probably got their teeth kicked in this one just based on what we've seen so far throughout the season. And that's just kind of part of it. The good thing is there's a whole football game that has to be played that we get to kind of watch. But it did make me a little nervous when a team can do that to you offensively, especially when we're putting the ball on the ground, trying to do everything we can offensively to be able to run and then pass the ball. We passed, to me, pretty effectively in this game as well. 304 yards to that note. 371 for them. They're a little bit better offensively as far as through the air. But the numbers-wise, Georgia was better. Now, Aguilar, credit out to him right here at the start, started this game immaculately. Through the first quarter, what did they say? 14 for 14, 16 for 16 at one point, threw for almost 300 yards at that point in time. Maybe not quite that much. And 2 touchdowns early in this football game. It was like he couldn't miss. He and his guys were on like perfect sync throughout the start of this football game. And we needed that interruption. Here's the best part about it. You have a couple of coaches, and obviously Glenn Schumann, obviously in a Kirby Smart, who's a defensive-minded coach, who are smart enough to understand early enough in a football game adjustments need to be made right now. Not at halftime, not the third quarter, not later in this. We have to start making adjustments now. And Georgia slowly started to do that early into the game, which was good. And obviously well needed, because we started realizing pretty quickly, hey, offensively, they're doing what they want at will through the air right now. They didn't run the ball very effectively until later in the game. A lot of that is because obviously through the air, they were getting whatever they wanted, especially early in this game. But kind of getting back to some of our stats right here. 55 times on the ground for Georgia, 34. We only averaged 3.6 on the ground, yardage-wise, 3.6 yards a carry. Hey, that's 3.6 cloud of dust. What do they say, 4 yards in a cloud of dust? Pretty good averaging that every time, because you're getting a first down every 3 times you run the ball. 3 touchdowns on the ground. They had 1 on the ground. We lost 17 yards in this one because of sacks. That's going to matter in this one. I think they had 4 or 5 sacks in this football game. We only got to Aguilar 1 time in this game. He didn't really affect us with his legs as much as I thought that he potentially could have, which was a good thing. But he also had a lot of time there. We didn't really penetrate as much as I would like for us to have defensively, but still, again, we did well. 23 for 32 is what Gunner ended up in this game. Actually, he ended up better than that. Let me look. Yeah, 23 for 31, because one of those passes was Ryan Puglisi coming in right there at half, chunking one up, trying to make something happen. He had 2 touchdowns on the day. Again, he was sacked 4 times, so that was the number. There, we only sacked him 1 time, 371. 24 for 36 is what Aguilar ended up, 4 touchdowns and the 2 interceptions. Again, his explosive plays early in this game was a lot of what put them well ahead. 21-7. There we go again. Here's another one, because, again, I love doing this, and it probably aggravates a lot of people, but I like doing it anyway. Tennessee's going to score 41. We're going to turn the ball over twice. They're going to have almost 500 yards of offense. Aguilar's going to start the game like 14 for 14, 2 touchdowns, 250-something yards. And we're going to be down 21-7, I'm pretty sure, in the first quarter. Yeah, 21-7, and the first quarter is not even over. Is how quickly this game seemed like it was going to get out of hand very quickly. And then Georgia kind of turned that thing around. Rushing, I'll run through the stats, and then I want to kind of run through like what happened throughout this game and how we got where we were. Nate Frazier leads the charge, 73 yards on the ground. Gunner Stockton behind him with 48. Gunner did have the 1 touchdown early in this game. Matter of fact, both quarterbacks rushing touchdowns to start the football game for each other. That was kind of a neat thing that I saw, obviously, there early. Dwight Phillips, 29 yards. Chauncey Bowens, 37 yards. Josh McCray, the little come-out game in this one, only 17 yards, but did have 2 touchdowns, one of which was the touchdown late. This was an important thing, and this is why I want to say this. When we played, I guess it was Austin Peay, that goal line stand, the only thing that aggravated me more than anything was seeing, not that a Nate Frazier didn't push in there, not that a Cash, not that some of these other guys, even a Chauncey Bowens, didn't run this ball in, but it was, we've got heavy dudes, 240-pound running backs that are in this room. Put them on there, let them be a wrecking ball, and just bowling ball their way through this line. And he did this twice. Do it every time on the goal line, because the dude is a wrecking ball, and he can do that. Dylan Bell, 1 run, -1 yards. Zachariah Branch, technically a run in this 4. Some of these like little pitches, they kind of mess me up, because some of them they call a pass, some of them they call a run. But anyway, Colby Young led the charge through the air, 73 yards. His long was 45. Obviously opening the game. What a way to start the game. Zachariah Branch, 69 with a touchdown. London Humphreys, 59 with a touchdown. Very key one on 4th down late in this football game. Lawson Lucky, 25 yards. Dylan Bell, 23 yards. Oscar Delp, 18 yards. Sokovie White, 17. Cash money, 13. And Chauncey Bowens, 7. Again, 304 yards through the air, 2 touchdowns through the air. So Gunner ends up 3 total touchdowns on the night. I thought it was pretty important here. Now let me start getting into kind of how this happened. And then I'll kind of talk about some of the defensive stat numbers here. Okay. This is how this happened. Time of possession, something, again, I think was important in this football game. 38 minutes, 26 seconds, Georgia had the ball, to the 21 minutes and 32 seconds in this game. First quarter was the only quarter in this football game that Tennessee had the ball longer than Georgia did. 6 minutes, 55 seconds for Georgia, 8 minutes, 3 seconds for Tennessee. Again, at the end of the first quarter, Tennessee leads 21-7. I digress. We move on. Second quarter, Georgia has the ball 10 minutes and 37 seconds to Tennessee's 4:23. That alone right there, I would say, okay, Georgia went on the ground, pounded the ball, started doing their death march down the field. Maybe they tie this up. They still didn't. Didn't have the lead at that point. Third quarter, this was the turning point in the game. I've heard this said many times. It's like the last 4 minutes of the half and then the first 4 minutes coming out of the half there in the third quarter are the most pivotal and important parts of a football game. If you can win these quarters in that way, you can win a football game. Georgia had the ball 11 minutes and 20 seconds in the third quarter to Tennessee's 3 minutes and 40 seconds. Okay. This is how this lined up. First quarter, we know how things started. Obviously, the touchdown. I want you to look at these drives. How many plays it took, the drives, and the time. Again, it mattered to me at least. And this is the reason. The first drive for Georgia, which resulted in 75 yards, 6 plays, 2.5 minutes. Probably one of Georgia's shorter runs of the entire day of getting anything out of it. Their next drive to get a touchdown, also in the first quarter. Here we go. 9 plays, 72 yards, 3 minutes, 37 seconds. We got 2 touchdowns on the board. Actually, technically, that started in the first quarter, but we didn't score until the second quarter. Anyways, here's where things start really getting ramped up. Second quarter, 14-play, 88-minute drive that took 6 minutes and 15 seconds off the clock. The only problem I had with this was that entire drive that started on Georgia's 10-yard line. Now, we drive almost all the way down the field. We end up on their 2-yard line. We kick a field goal out of that. 14-play, 88-yard drive, 6 minutes, 15 seconds. We get a field goal out of it. Again, that's okay. Not the end of the world. 17, that's where we end up at half. Obviously, right there at the half, we get the ball on the 30 after an interception, and this is where I say when you get turnovers, you have to make them matter. We get the ball with 1 minute and 2 seconds left on Georgia's 30-yard line off of an interception. We got to make something happen. We only moved the ball 5 plays, 20 yards. That's as far as we go in that 1 minute and 2 second time frame, and then we have to chunk it downfield to try for a Hail Mary with Ryan Puglisi. Doesn't go anywhere, obviously gets intercepted. They return it for a little ways. So that's the first one. That's the first turnover we get that we don't turn into anything. Again, these are important, especially in a game that's going to matter here a little bit later. We come out of the third quarter. Here is the death march of Kirby Smart right here, and this was the tone setter for the third quarter. But unfortunately, it wouldn't last very long because this is when Georgia came out, strikes down the field in a 14-play. Again, we've already had one of these 14 plays, 75-yard drive that took 7 minutes and 41 seconds. You're talking about over half of the entire third quarter was the first drive of Georgia coming out, starting on their own 25. We get a touchdown out of it. We take the lead for the first time in the game, and the crowd was silent. And this is the moment that what Georgia can do is defensively get a stop, get the ball back, do it again, and you're good to go. That didn't happen. That didn't happen after that because Tennessee turned right back around, and I'm pretty sure scored after this. Let's see, in the third quarter, I think that's when they end up throwing another interception here actually in just a little bit. We get the ball back just a little bit later. We punt it. Then we get another one. This is probably the most important one to me. With 3:48 left, we intercept the ball on Tennessee's 37-yard line. We move the ball 7 yards in 4 plays. We go 4 and out. Technically not 4 and out because we kick a field goal. We get the field goal. But this is one of those, again, you've just marched down the field. You've scored. You have the opportunity to put your foot on their throat. You get an interception, and we did nothing with it. We kicked a field goal. You still have the lead in this, but all we did was kick a field goal. That was one very, very dire to me that it's important. Hey, in this situation, we need a touchdown. It would be important for me and us. Let's get a touchdown in this football game. Let's make this even more important of a drive. And that unfortunately didn't happen. And then it turns around. They score, and then they get a fumble off of us. So it gets, all of a sudden, the game's flipped. Everything is completely flipped in this. We get it again there in the fourth quarter. This is the big drive, obviously, with the fourth down situation there with Humphreys. 9 plays, 75 yards, and 4 minutes and 8 seconds. Again, earlier in this, we had 14 plays, 75 yards. That took 7 minutes, 41 seconds. 14 plays, 88 yards, 6 minutes, and 15 seconds. This one, 9, 75, and 408. So Georgia can turn it up when they want to. Again, 6 and 75 in 2.5 minutes to start the game. You can do this very quickly if you want, but Kirby's kind of smart. Okay, a little punish there, but kind of smart with the way that sometimes he does things. Obviously, getting the ball and deciding when he wants to make these drives, like he did starting the third quarter, opening that second half, trying to make a statement, which was a statement until we did nothing with an interception later, and essentially just gave them all the momentum back, and they took that and they drove with it, and it was very effective for them. The only good thing is, obviously, later into this football game, what happened? They get the ball back, they drive, and here's one thing: I've only ever seen this one other time, and I was pretty surprised by it, if I'm honest with you, and it was this. Why, if I'm Tennessee, I'm kicking myself in this because of this. Why, for a team who offensively has been able to move the ball at will through the air, for what it seemed at least, why did that stop? They go up at one point in time, obviously 8 points. Why all of a sudden did they decide, let's slow things down? Let's run the ball. It was effective. They were effective at the run. Obviously, they got into field goal range. But at that point in time, my objective is going to be, I'm putting my foot on your throat. You didn't do it to us earlier, but I'm doing it now to you, and I'm going to do everything I can to throw this ball in the end zone and score. Again, I know Georgia made the changes defensively to eliminate that and limit what they were doing offensively through the air. But if I'm them, I don't care. I'm doing everything I can to try to make a difference in that, to try anything and everything that I can to score in some way or the other, but especially through the air, something that had been effective all day. But all of a sudden, they went away from that. The only other time I've seen this was in that Ohio State game that ended eerily similarly to this one, with exception to the overtime, obviously, that happened. But an offensive team who had been able to throw the ball at will all game all of a sudden went away from it. And right there at the end got almost, to me, too conservative, to the point where it cost them the football game. They drive down, they try to run, they get a false start, it backs them up 5. Hey, should they have gone ahead and kicked it with 8 seconds? Is Georgia really going to score with 3 seconds? Not saying that can't happen. Crazier things have happened. But I think I put that on the back of, hey, make them try to score in 3 seconds. Make a major crazy thing have to happen for them to beat us. Kick this field goal here. Instead, you get a false start. Unfortunately for your team, obviously, it backs you up 5. And all of a sudden, your kicker has either psyched himself out. I don't know what his deal was. He looked like he was in a zone, and then it's like he came out there and he was out of a zone, out of breath too. But they had their opportunities. They didn't take them. And similarly to that Ohio State game, they missed the field goal. Now, that ended the game against Ohio State, but this sends us to overtime. Again, put your foot on the throat. And I'm saying that from a Georgia fan's perspective, because that's what I would have wanted us to do in that. Had we been in that same situation offensively where we're throwing it down your throat all day and you can't stop us, I don't want us to get conservative. We're up 8 here. If we kick this field goal, yes, the game is over for certain. Well, actually, I guess technically at that time it was tied. But I want to put my foot on your throat too. And if we've been driving the ball through the air, I want to keep driving the ball through the air and get as close as we possibly can, at least by that time. But that didn't happen. Again, they kind of, it seems like, let off the gas a little bit. They ran effectively. They got in the place they needed to be to win the game, and it just didn't happen. Obviously, get that huge play just before that with Humphreys that gets connected there with Gunner. A huge play, a play that reminded me a lot of Lab McConkey and some of the stuff that he used to do with us, which was awesome. He gets targeted a couple times in this game, makes the catches, and that one, biggest of them all, to tie the football game. Well, eventually tie the football game after the Zachariah Branch 2-point conversion there. But a huge throw for Gunner. I mean, just I don't even know really the best adjectives to use, how incredible it was to make a throw like that on the road, to be the man beater that he had been the entire game offensively, because he got the matchups that he wanted offensively, and he showed you, if you're going to play man against us, this is what I'm going to do to you, because I enjoy that. I can do that. And by the way, let me just say this right here. We have, I'm not going to say the toughest quarterback in the SEC. I'm going to say we have the toughest quarterback in the country, in the entire country. Gunnar Stockton is the toughest quarterback in the whole country. Because I promise you, you could take every single quarterback that's in this league, anywhere, and let him get hit in the ways, not only because he ran the ball and doesn't slide, because he lowers his shoulder and wants to give you the boom just like you want to give it to him, but he stands in the pocket in these times. He should step up a little bit more, but he stands in the pocket. He takes these hits. He takes these sacks that he's taken, and some of them are huge. Some of them are big hits. Some of them are not just little, and then I get pushed a little bit. No, I'm talking about he is throwing the ball with somebody in his face and making these plays happen because he cares about the team. He loves the team that he plays for. He loves football, and he's just a solid dude. But the toughest quarterback in the country, in my opinion. You can agree or disagree with me, but I don't know of a tougher quarterback that I've seen in a long time other than that dude right there. And I cannot tell you how awesome it is the fact that he is our quarterback at the University of Georgia, because that dude, he's tough. He's tough as the truck that he drives around everywhere that he goes. And I'm proud of him for being able to have the game that he had in this because, again, Marshall game, pretty good game. Austin P, here came everybody that wanted to say you're not good enough. And then he came into this Tennessee game, his first true road start against a ruckus atmosphere, stared down it, didn't necessarily have like the perfect game, but he had a fantastic game overall, considering everything he was up against, considering the offensive line that he had that was struggling throughout the game, because that's all there was to it. They were struggling. We had a lot of troubles on that right side. We're still trying to get things figured out. And for the love of God, I hope we can get it figured out by next week, obviously. But he did everything he could to put this team on his shoulders and make sure that at the end of the day, Georgia was the team that was driving back to Athens with the win instead of leaving it right there in Knoxville. So incredibly proud of the game that he had, the dude that he is, and how much he represents this university. You could not ask for a better quarterback. And for anybody that's out there that says, hey, I'm ready for a change, this guy's just not it. You're trying to push out probably the toughest guy that I think I've ever seen play quarterback for the University of Georgia. And again, a really long time. That's no offense to any quarterback that we've had at Georgia. Stetson was incredible, obviously. Stetson's a tough dude too, but this guy's just different. And it should speak volumes to the fact that when he came in the SEC championship game last year against Texas, how much your team rallied around this guy and how much that dude just means to them in general as well. And he's tough. And to me, that should just light a fire under every one of these guys to watch this dude. Watch what he does. He doesn't care if he's about to get hit in the mouth. If he can make a play downfield, that he's going to do everything he can to do that. And again, incredibly proud of the game that he had and being able to kind of quiet some of these people who think he's not good enough. Defensively, let's take a look at a couple of guys right here. C.J. Allen leads the charge. 11 total tackles, 10 of those an assist. Almost all of these are like assisted tackles. These are guys rallying to the ball, which was really important in this one. Janelle Aguero, huge game, obviously has an interception in the game, has 7 tackles in this one, 3 of those solo. Chris Cole also getting a sack in this game. That was the only sack that we had in the game. And this dude is a stud too. He had 6 tackles on the night. Gabe Harris and Kristen Miller also getting in the backfield for a tackle for loss in this game as well. But a lot of dudes in this one. Kyron Jones, have yourself a day. Raylan Wilson, we talked about Janelle. KJ Bolden also with an interception in this game as well. Just a great game. Again, defensively, we're going to look at this game and say, man, we gave up 41 points to this Tennessee team. And I'm going to tell you this right now. Tennessee is a much better football team than I thought that they were going to be starting this game. And I just kind of have to eat crow on that, to be honest with you. I didn't think they were going to be as good as they were. And offensively, they are. They are a very good offensive team. They get some guys back on defense, and I think they're going to be really good defensively too. This is a team that I'm going to be honest with you. If Georgia plays the way that they did in this game for the rest of the season, and Tennessee plays the way they did in this game for the rest of the season, obviously cleaning up a few things defensively, these two teams could very well meet again in the SEC championship game in Atlanta at the end of the season. Again, you don't have divisions anymore. It's the top 2 teams. It's the top 2 dogs at the end of this thing that play one another when that time comes. And right now, they're not going to be ranked second. Tennessee's not going to be ranked second in the SEC, obviously, because of that loss. They have to go below teams that have wins in the SEC. But right now, the 2 best teams in the SEC, to me, it's Georgia and Tennessee. And that's no knock on an Oklahoma team. That's no knock on any of these other teams who are obviously an LSU team, who, by the way, very overrated. We're going to talk about that coming up here in just a minute. It's no knock on these other teams that have these wins that are working their way there. But what I saw on Saturday was two high caliber offensive defenses. Again, got to get some things figured out. But I saw two teams who are going to be vying for a spot in the playoffs and vying for a spot also in that SEC championship game. And it wouldn't surprise me to see us have that rematch. Do I want that? No, not necessarily. Mainly because when we see one game in the season, that's fun. But I don't really like these reruns of games. Again, if it was a Georgia Alabama that we're going to play in the regular season, Georgia Texas like it was last year, we had the regular season, and then SEC. Was it a great game? Yes, but I just don't want to see them again. And not necessarily because this game was so close and maybe they figured things out. Because in the same way that we played a Texas team, hey, we had their number in the regular season. I still think we can have your number when it comes that other time. Again, you're not going to be in Neyland when that time comes. But I like seeing some of these games that we don't necessarily get in the regular season. But then again, I also see the side of, hey, it's such a great game in the regular season. I'd love to see it again in a playoff contention spot or in that, again, like an SEC championship kind of situation there. Kind of rounding some things out here. Again, neither team had really played anybody that was just world beaters at that point in time. And both of us got our first test. And I don't think you could ask for much better of a first test getting into not just SEC play, but just into true football as it is. Now, moving forward from this, Georgia gets to bye, and then it's Alabama. Tennessee's about to play a UAB team. Here's something I will be kind of interested in. How do they play this UAB game coming up this week? Do they play it with their head on fire? Do they score 70? Or do they come into this game kind of lackluster? Maybe some of that's just a little bit of the, you took a lot out of them in that game that you played before. Maybe they don't play up to kind of that standard, that par, so to speak. And here's the thing I would say to that is that would be unfortunate if they don't play as great as they possibly can to then look back, because every time this happens, what happens is somebody wants to look and say, oh, that team's not as good as we thought they were. That means the team they played is not as good as we thought they were. Both of these teams are really good football teams. Both of them great coaching. And I'll be honest with you, I don't think at the end of this game I looked and went either coach outcoached one or the other. Okay, I think there were spurts where both coaches had a hand up against the other. Again, this is the most Heupel's ever scored against a Kirby Smart Georgia team ever. So credit out to them on that. But in the same way, you have a coach in Kirby Smart who finds a way to win with the guys that he's got. And he said this before, this is the closest knit team that he feels like he's had, especially last year's team wasn't nearly as close as this year. Not going to say some teams in the past, those 2021, 22 kind of seasons that those guys weren't. But these guys are locked in together, which is a good thing. It takes that buying in to one another to be able to be successful in that way. And I think both of these teams are really good coaching side of things. Still some things to figure out, obviously, defensively. We're going to do that kind of moving forward. But Georgia wins this one. 44-41, took the overtime. Again, one other thing, that run that Nate Frazier had, the first play that Georgia had the ball in overtime, man, did it look, as soon as I saw it, I was like, that looked just like Sony in the Rose Bowl game in Oklahoma. And I'm not just saying this because I've seen everybody else saying it. Literally, that was the first thought I had. I tweeted it as soon as I saw it. And I was trying to find a GIF of him running around the edge and never could find it. But then I started seeing everybody else had that same thought, and I was like, us Georgia fans, we all have that same kind of mentality when it comes to it. Some of the keys to the game that I did have coming into this one: rip the rock gunner. Boom, we did that. Protect the football. So, again, the interception at the half, I'm not considering that to be necessarily not protecting the football. That was throwing it up, hoping for the best. More than likely, you're going to get that 50-50 chance of either it gets intercepted or we score a touchdown somehow. And then the strip sack, again, I'm not really going to count that as something in this that we didn't protect the football well. You get a guy that wraps around the backside and slaps the ball out of his hand. That's going to happen. It's not really something that he could protect the ball when he's trying to get ready to throw it. So that one, protect the ball, I will say B-. How about that? I'll give it a grade on that because that fell on the offensive line more than it did gunner. So that was good. Contained the quarterback. He didn't really run too much in this game, which was good. Only one sack on the day. Would love to see those numbers go up a little bit, but is what it is. I predicted it 31-20. Obviously, that did not come true in this, so that is what that is. Some of the picks, let's see, around the country. We'll look at some of these other games here in just a minute from last week. What I want to get to real quick, I want to get to some of the voicemail from this game from last week. So what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to play a couple of these voicemails. I think we've got 3 from this past Saturday, some of the games where you guys called in, and we'll play some of those now. Here's the first one.
Go Dogs. Second, woof, woof, woof. They did a heck of a roll all the way to the finish. We're from Greer, South Carolina. Go Dogs in memory of Nana Sandra Tyler.
All right. From Greer, South Carolina. I have no idea where that is, to be honest with you. But go Dogs. It was a heck of a roll all the way through. Again, good game offensively. Was loving to see Georgia be able to score as many points as they did in this game. That was obviously very exciting to see. Hope to see some more of that as we go throughout the season.
Hey, guys. I had no idea a coach could ice his own kicker. They took 10 minutes from the time they got in field goal range to try and take that kick. And they iced their own kicker. I had already surrendered to a friend of mine who's a Tennessee fan and told him, good game, you guys can win 1 out of 9. 1 after losing 9. And then this happened. We deserved to win that game because they screwed it up. And this is Doug from Jefferson.
Thanks for calling in, Doug from Jefferson there. Yeah, that's very true. This was kind of a weird situation there where they, again, had the opportunity where with those 8 seconds left, I'm kicking the football right then and there. I'm not taking a chance of us fumbling the ball, trying to run it, whatever the case is. We're close enough right now. I don't know if it was more of one of those, hey, let's get more in a spot or just trying to get closer, but I'm kicking the ball from that point on. But then to, obviously get the false start penalty, let's get the guys out there, just let him kick it. Now, you do have a point on that he did basically ice his kicker. It's just a strange kind of a strange play of events right there at the end of the game where I was even sitting back and I did kind of the same thing. I didn't fully concede to the fact that I was like, all right, they won the game, but I was just sitting there going, but I did the same thing against Alabama in the past when they missed the field goal and then we went to overtime and still inevitably lost the game. I did it when we played Ohio State. I said, all right, well, they're in field goal range immediately. And then it's like they did the same thing, which I talked about on top of the show here. They did the same thing where they just stopped. They stopped doing what they had been doing effectively and tried to run the ball, and we stopped that. You're not going to run the ball very effectively against Georgia. And then they missed the field goal. So I did have that hope, at the end. I was like, yeah, they probably got this one won, which is unfortunate. And then they miss it. And they did. You're not necessarily wrong in the fact that we did deserve to win that game. They screwed it up. They had the chance there at the end. Again, when you have the opportunity, put your foot on their throat, be done with it. And that's all there is to that. That's Doug again from Jefferson. Thanks for calling in. And one more here, and we'll round it out with this last one here.
Yeah, this is Trey Powell calling out of Augusta, Georgia. I just want to say go Dogs. The Dogs got some fight in them this year. They were down a little bit. They came back with a big bite, took care of business. Go Dogs.
Go Dogs. Yeah, thanks, Trey. That was again, great game. And you're right. This is a team that does have bite to them this year. Something that it seemed, I'm not going to say we fully lacked last season, but it did just feel like last season there were these games where we were just in this lull. We talked about it a lot, that especially the start of games, how it was just like, man, where is the fight in these guys? Why do we just we just kind of play with guys for a little while before we ever truly get into a game, before we really try to hammer down on some guys? And I didn't really feel that way last year. And then again, SEC championship game comes, Carson goes down, Gunner comes in, and then it's like that spark was ignited in this team. And I think a lot of that, again, boils back to this guy that you have at quarterback who really just kind of puts that bite in this dog. He's the guy who he doesn't care. He's putting his head down every day. He's working hard. He's doing everything he can to make sure that this team wins and puts us in winning situations. And I agree 100%. I think we've got some fight in us this year to be able to come back from a game like that and win the way that we did. You got to have that fight in you to be able to do that. So very true off of that right there. So again, thanks Trey for calling, Doug, everybody for calling in this week. Again, I'll open those lines. The lines are always open. If you ever want to leave a voicemail, you can call obviously the number again, 844-65-7 against TCU, DAWG, DAWG. And if you don't know how to do that on the phone, it's simple, 844-657-3294. That's how you call in. You can call in anytime, leave a voicemail at any point in time. It'll always go to the voicemail. I'll see it here. I'll be able to play it on the show for you guys. I'm going to try to probably save these for these live events just because I think it's a little bit more fun to be able to do it live. And then from 9 to 5 on these Thursday live call-in shows. You can call at any point in time. It'll pop up on the screen, and I'll answer it, and we'll talk live about whatever it is that you guys want to talk about at that point in time. So let's get into some of these other games that did happen around the country again, at least last week. Let's see. Some of the games from last week. Oh, no, I'll go through these games from last week, and then I want to talk about the picks that I did have, because again, it was a pretty effective week. We had these 1,000,000-0 scores again. Indiana over Indiana State, 73-0. Georgia over Tennessee, 44-41. Go Dogs. Look good. Ohio State. This was an interesting one. 3-3 in the first, or 3-0 in the first quarter. 13-3 at the half. Then it was all of a sudden 13-9, and Ohio was playing with Ohio State. Now, Ohio State wins this game 37-9. It took care of the business at the third and fourth quarter, obviously pulling away from this one. But I'm sick of this. I'm sick of, if everybody wants to fuss at Georgia for having a struggle game or being slow against somebody, why are we not having that same conversation about some of these other teams that are doing that? I'll leave that there. Penn State, no trouble at all, 52-6. Here's the other one. This is one I want to talk about because this game right here, I don't know what it is, guys. LSU beats Florida 20-10. It's at LSU. It's at Death Valley. It's a night game. DJ Lagway has the worst game of his career. 33-49, 287, a touchdown, 5 interceptions. It's not a good night. Not a good night at all. And in this same vein, Florida threw 5 interceptions, and they only lost by 10. I'm just going to make these comparisons right here and right now. If Georgia, in any way, shape, form, or fashion, in this Tennessee game, if Gunner throws 5 interceptions, Georgia loses 78-34, something like that. Because the way their offense was moving the ball, I'm not going to say 100% that's what it would have been, but that's what it would have felt like. LSU is the most overrated team right now in the SEC to me. And I know everybody wants to look at this team, look at, how good they are and everything. I talked about this last week when LSU scored with or struggled with a La Tech team, and I get it. Again, we struggled with an Austin Peay team. We beat Austin Peay by more than they beat Louisiana Tech in this game. Somehow, and I made my fuss on this with the AP poll, somehow in that we drop in the AP poll, and yet they rise, or no, I guess they stayed the same at third, but we drop a couple spots. And I'm thinking, how does that happen? How do two teams that both played at home that struggle with a team that they should not struggle with, how does one of them drop 2 spots and the other one we leave there? And then they turn around and play a Florida team who just lost to USF, or USF, who Miami thumped this week, which we're going to talk about here in just a minute. But offensively, Florida couldn't get things done. DJ Lagway, again, had a rough day, but threw 5 interceptions, and LSU still only won this game by 10. By two possessions is all they won this game by. And then after the game, and I cannot stand this, a coach who, when he was at Notre Dame, had Notre Dame on the edge all this time, comes to LSU, changes his accent, but then to just berate reporters who are in a room who are asking questions, to go as far as to say, let's find a different question. He asks a different question. It's still not a good enough question from Brian Kelly. So he asked the third question and says, what's wrong with your offense? Essentially saying your offense sucks at the end of this because you can't score. You can't run the ball. What's the deal on third down? Now you don't want to talk about it. What's wrong with the offense? And he just completely fusses about it the entire time. I can't stand that in any way, shape, form, or fashion. I don't know that he ever threw anybody under the bus this time, which normally he does. But LSU is the most overrated team in the SEC in the country right now to me. They're not the third-ranked team in the country, and eventually this is going to show its face. Eventually it's going to show it. And even if it was Georgia that was about to have to go play at Death Valley, I'd say the same thing. Not trying to jinx anything, but my goodness, that team is not very good to me. This might be a top 15, top 25 team, and maybe by the end of the year we see that, and that's proven that way. I don't know that their schedule necessarily lines up terribly. Let's see. Yeah, they're about to play. Did that say Southern Louisiana? And then they go to Ole Miss. Ole Miss didn't look like a world beater this past weekend. South Carolina gets beat by Vanderbilt. Not saying that's a bad thing. Vandy looks a little bit better. Texas A&M, that'll be a good one, but they get it at home. They go to Alabama. That's going to be tough. Arkansas, never know. Western Kentucky, and then Oklahoma at the end of the season. So I think by the end of the season, it'll rear its face. It'll tell you what it is, obviously. But right now, this does not look like the third team in the country, to me at least. I digress. I'll move on. Sorry to stick on that so hard. Oregon Northwestern. This was a little bit of a struggle game here for a little bit. They were up 17-0 at one point, and then they were up 31-0. So it was like, oh yeah, they're taking care of business. Then they kind of let them come back there in the fourth quarter, 34-14. Overall, took care of business. Miami in this one though, another big rain delay in these games. 49-12 over South Florida. We had kind of talked about this, South Florida. I was like, hey, could they do it? I doubt it. And Miami is showing that they truly are one of these top teams in the country this year. And they showed that against the South Florida team, who was riding off of a couple of pretty good games. And it makes me kind of look and wonder and go, okay, is Florida actually that bad that South Florida did this? And even the Boise State, is Florida actually that bad? Or is South Florida not necessarily that good? And I hate to have this comparison, because I hate it when that comparison is made about Georgia, where when you play a game, okay, well, maybe that team's just not that good. But I don't think Florida's very good. They have 5 interceptions, and LSU can't do anything with it. I do think Miami's very good. I think South Florida's still a good team. I do. I think South Florida can beat anybody on any given Saturday. But I think Miami is actually a very, very good football team. And credit out to Carson Beck. 340 yards, 3 touchdowns in that one. That was a good one. Texas struggles with the UTEP team, 27-10 in the end. Arch Manning does not look like what everybody thought he would. Maybe by the end of the season, he gets that turned around. Maybe here this week. Maybe this week is the turnaround for him. But they don't look like the team I thought that they would look like this year. So much so it makes me kind of want to change some of my picks that we had at the start of the season. But we'll see. Might have an episode. This is the bye week. This is usually when I have a conversation with Hunter. That might be something as a bonus episode that I would release on a Sunday. I'll talk to him about it. Texas A&M Notre Dame, probably one of the other biggest games in the country this weekend, because it had those implications of playoff. Hey, Notre Dame, you're not in a conference. What happens when you play a team and you lose, and now you're 0-2 against a Miami team who looks very good, a Texas A&M team who looks very good in this one, and you don't have a win on the board, and your schedule is going to line up in a way that it doesn't have a lot of strength left to it. It doesn't have a lot of guys on it that are, I say that, there are some pretty decent teams that Notre Dame's going to play, but I don't know if it's going to be enough for you to get back in the playoffs. Texas A&M wins this one 41-40. Some people say it was a fluke there at the end. Regardless, the final score is 41-40, and it's not Notre Dame's way. Let's see. Vandy, South Carolina. Again, I'll get to the picks here in just a minute. Vandy 31-7. They dominated this game. It was at Williams-Brice Stadium, and it was at night. South Carolina was ranked 11th coming into this one. Both 2-0 at the end of it. Vandy 3-0. South Carolina 2-1. Another big one earlier in the day. Georgia Tech, Clemson. This one's at Georgia Tech. Clemson was ranked 12th at the time. Georgia Tech beats them at a field goal late in the game to win 24-21, putting the game away for the first time. Georgia Tech beating Clemson since 2014. 2014. That's been 11 years ago. So they had a long run, Clemson did, against the Georgia Tech team. That came to an end this weekend. Oklahoma over Temple, 42-3. Iowa State over Arkansas State, 24-16. Arkansas Ole Miss, this was another good game. I think Arkansas is still a pretty good team. I still think Ole Miss is pretty good also, but I just don't know. I don't know that Ole Miss is that same team they were last year. I think they've still got some things they need to figure out. In the end, they still do win this game. They are still undefeated, 41-35. Alabama over Wisconsin, 38-14. Texas Tech, big win over Oregon State, 45-14. Texas Tech offensively looking really good this season. Auburn over South Alabama, 31-15. Missouri over Louisiana, 52-10. That was those off of it. Let's see. With this NIL era, there's not as many dominant teams. That being said, who says Georgia isn't the number 3 team? I agree. I gotta agree with that. Dog229. They're on YouTube. Yeah, I'm gonna be honest with you. That's something else I probably should pull up here. I can get it pulled up for us real quick. They did have, obviously, the AP poll dropped again. Georgia does move up to 5. They jump Oregon in this one. Oregon falls a couple spots. Kind of strange there that they fell a couple spots. Miami does move up to 4. Again, I know we kind of talk about this week in and week out too, that the rankings really do not matter until we get late in this game or late into the season. once we get to where, it's cutting time, where it's like, all right, when you lose a game in week 9, 10, these games are going to affect you because you're late into the season. Once we get obviously to that college football poll that starts to come out, then they're going to matter. But this is just kind of where we get to gauge from it. Obviously, the coaches poll does have Georgia at that 3 spot. Georgia sits at the 5 spot, but LSU still sits in that 3 spot. And I just don't, again, I don't agree with it. Ohio State 1, Penn State 2. And here's the thing, Penn State's schedule really lines up fairly well for them this year, to where they're probably going to be able to stay up there in that spot. But Ohio State, Penn State there, LSU at 3, that's not going to last. Miami at 4. Miami's a really good football team this year. Again, Georgia 5, Oregon 6, FSU at 7. FSU continues to look good. I think they had the bye week this week, but still, they move up like 3 spots at that point in time. How's it going? It's Dog Talk. All right, that's the kind of night we're going to have, I guess. So back to the AP poll. Texas didn't look all that great. They'd fall a spot down to 8. Illinois at 9. Texas A&M 10. Up quite a bit there, 6 spots. Let's see. Iowa State up 2 spots to 12. Ole Miss 4 spots to 13. Alabama 5 spots to 14. Tennessee sits at 15. They don't move. And again, I think that's actually pretty well. That's pretty warranted to me for them not to fall any, because again, I think this was a really good football team, really good football game, obviously, to play. Utah up 4 spots to 16. Texas Tech up 4 to 7. Georgia Tech not ranked last week. They move up to 18. Indiana a few spots up to 19. Vanderbilt not ranked in the top 25 for the first time in a few years. They're at 20. Michigan up a couple spots to 21. Auburn 22. Missouri 23. Notre Dame falls 16 spots to 24. The only team who has 2 losses on the season, but still in the top 25 without a single win. USC in the top 25. There they are. They're ranked. Something I talked about kind of coming into this one. But that is what it is. There's the AP poll. Some of the picks, I did want to look at least some of the picks that I had from this past weekend. We did have, obviously, I picked Georgia over Tennessee in this one. There's your first win of it. Let's see if some of my other picks will actually come up. It'd have been a good idea to have these things pulled up earlier there, Holden. There we go. All right. I had Georgia over Tennessee. You're not going to see it on the screen, but I'll tell you guys about it. I had Georgia over Tennessee. We're 1-0. I had LSU over Florida, and I took LSU with those points, 6.5. We're 3-0 right there. And then we had USF and Miami. I did pick Miami. There's 4-0, but I took USF in the points. Unfortunately, they didn't do that. Fall to 4-1. I took Vanderbilt plus 2.5 in this game. And Vandy to win outright moves us to 6-1 on the week. Again, couldn't have been much better than that. On the week, we move and improve to 13-6 on the season. I'll take that. That's a pretty decent, at least to me. What's your opinion on Penn State so low in the rankings but haven't played anyone? Yeah, I'm not really sure, because I want to see them play somebody. And that's, again, kind of the bad part about the start of the season, when all these rankings and everything come out the way that they do at the start of the season. You get some of these teams that get ranked really high, but then they don't really have anybody that they play until later into the season. So you really don't get to see what it is that they're going to be in the season. And that's unfortunate. I hope that they're going to be a really good team, and maybe they will at the end of the season. They do. I guess they are supposed to play Ohio State, I think, later into the season. So maybe we'll see. Maybe that's something we're going to see in this game, that they will actually come across and be a halfway decent team. But I don't know. So low in the rankings, but they haven't played anybody. They're ranked second. To be honest with you, they can be ranked second. I think they've got a pretty decent team, but will they win the games? They have these matchups when they play. They got Oregon coming. I guess that's this week. So there's test number 1 right there. Honestly, I think Oregon's probably a better team. There's going to be your first test, and then I think they're going to play Ohio State later. Can they win those games? That's what matters to me, because if you're winning all these other games, when you're beating Indiana, when you're beating Illinois, who are ranked teams, but when you're beating these guys, you're not playing these top dominant teams. You're not playing anybody out of the SEC in these games. Are you really that good? And I don't know. I think we're going to find out that this weekend. If they take care of business against Oregon, yeah, I think you get a little bit of a nod to that ranking there. But if they don't take care of business against Oregon, it's a little bit of a different story. Some of the other games, I did at least want to look at some of these games that are coming up this week, for this coming week, before we wrap up, because we are on the wrap up here. I do apologize for that. So Texas Tech, Utah, probably one of the big ones over the weekend. That one's at 12 o'clock. Texas Tech, again, offensively looks really good. This is a team that could be vying for that Big 12 spot, trying to be in this playoff late into the season, but Utah is also fighting for that. 17 versus 16. Really good game probably coming up here at lunchtime on Fox. UAB, Tennessee. Let's see what Tennessee is after they played last week. I fully expect Oregon to steamroll Oregon State. Oklahoma and Auburn, that's going to be a good one at Oklahoma, 3:30 on ABC. Oklahoma 7.5-point favorite. Let's see, Tulane, Ole Miss. Ole Miss less than a 2-touchdown favorite. Tulane is undefeated coming in this one. Sneaky game right here. That's all I'll say. Michigan at Nebraska. Michigan 2-1. Nebraska 3-0. Michigan a 1.5-point favorite on the road. Nebraska a home dog in this one, 1.5. We'll see. Purdue, Notre Dame. Bounce back chance for Notre Dame. Purdue is 2-1. Notre Dame's almost a 30-point favorite in this one, though. Temple, Georgia Tech. Tech should be able to take care of that one. South Carolina, Missouri. Here's an interesting one. South Carolina fell from 11th to out of the ranking completely because they lost to a Vanderbilt team who is now ranked 20th. Personally, I still think South Carolina is a good football team. Does Lenore Sellers play this week after the concussion that he suffered in that game against Vandy? I don't know. Maybe that's why they have this line. Missouri's a 9.5-point favorite. A 9.5-point favorite at home against the South Carolina team who last week was in the top 15, and we expected to be a team vying for the SEC championship. I still think South Carolina is a really good football team, and I'm not 100% sure if that will be that way throughout the entire season, but we'll see. We're going to see if that's something that they actually do come out with in the end of this. I'm just not 100% sure. I really think South Carolina could win this game. It's at Missouri, 7 o'clock. It's a night game on ESPN. But I really do. If Lenore Sellers plays, not going to say that Luke Doty couldn't do it, but if Lenore Sellers plays, I do think South Carolina can beat Missouri. Florida, Miami, this is another good chance for Florida to try to save something on this season. But this is also a chance for Miami to really make a big statement. Miami, a 9.5-point favorite at home. This is at SEC, or excuse me, it's on ABC. It's 7:30 Saturday night. Big game. This is a chance, you get those in-state rivals like that against that Gainesville, Florida versus that Miami, Florida game. These can be big. These can be where some fights kind of show up in this. But this is one I want to see. Does Florida have true fight in them to try to fight back in this game and get into it? Illinois, Indiana. Again, we talked about this just a little bit ago. Two ranked teams. Don't really know how to feel on this one. Again, don't have a lot of insight to these two Big Ten teams. These are two teams that every year they seem to kind of get up there in the rankings like they've done in this one, 9 and 19. And then neither one of them really does anything by the end of the season. So don't really have a big line on that one. IU is a 6.5-point favorite on that one. Dogs 229 agree. USC is better than they've played so far. Yeah. Yep. Beck with the face. I get that. Yep. Beck, by the way, his stats right now, 812 yards, 7 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Wonder which one of those numbers will go up first, the interceptions or the touchdowns. I shouldn't say that. That's wrong of me. I apologize. Vandy, big favorite against Georgia State, 28.5-point favorite at home. Sam Houston at Texas. Can Texas pick things up? Michigan State, USC. Maybe USC gets a test right here. Michigan State undefeated. It is at USC. Good Lord Almighty. This game's not going to be over till 2 in the morning. It starts at 11 that night on Fox. USC is an 18.5-point favorite. We'll see. We'll see if that's actually what they're going to be or not by the end of it. I'm not sure. Again, every year it seems like USC they find their way in the rankings and then they don't. So it'll play itself out for sure. But that's going to kind of wrap us up here. Hey, if I didn't tell you guys off the top of this thing, again, I appreciate you guys being here. Appreciate the few call-ins that we had, even though they weren't really anything. Voicemails, again, leave them at any point in time, and they could be played on the show later on. Again, I appreciate you guys being here. We will not have a Sunday episode unless Hunter and I decide to put something out with a little bye-week conversation. So we'll see. We'll see kind of how things go with that. But otherwise, next Thursday, we'll have another call-in show again. Same time, 9 to 10 o'clock. We'll be doing that, the call-in show there. So you guys can call in at any point in time. I may have to get a little bit of a screening going on with that now, obviously, with the way that things went tonight. But follow us on all the socials, at Dog Talk 20, pretty much anywhere, SEC on Twitter, on Instagram, Facebook, all the places. We'll be there. But otherwise, we'll check in with you guys later on. Yo, Dogs.